I'm going to go over the stages of water treatment and wastewater treatment. They are different, and you have to know each stage and what happens in each stage and know the difference between water treatment and wastewater treatment. So in Santa Clarita, one of our water treatment plants is the Castaic Lake Water Agency. They actually treat the water from Castaic Lake. There are other water treatment plants around town as well. All right, so we're going to start here with the diagram. And you're going to label it. So for us in Santa Clarita, we have two sources of our water. So we have the Santa Clara River and Castaic Lake. Santa Clara River has aquifers underneath it, so even if there's not surface water on top of the river, which is most of the time, we still pump water out from underneath. And then Castaic Lake, which is actually part of the California aqueduct system, the state water project. And so the aqueduct brings down water from about Lake Tahoe down through central California and into Castaic Lake and other lakes as well. So that's our water sources. The first thing that happens to some water sources is flocculants. We actually do not do flocculants in Santa Clarita because our water is not very turbid or cloudy. But in some places, they will add flocculants to coagulate particles and have them sink and get rid of them that way. So they'll sink in sedimentation tanks. Now we do have sedimentation tanks in Santa Clarita, and the sedimentation tanks really want to get rid of that bad bacteria. So we do something a little bit out of order from here. The first thing we do is actually do disinfection in our water treatment. We do disinfection with ozone, not chlorine. And then after all the bacteria is zapped, then it goes through filtration to remove the bacteria and any other small particles. So there are little particles of other items in the water, and the dead bacteria and the particles get filtered out with sand and gravel. So up here we have sand and gravel, and that was very similar to eco columns. One of the reasons why we did a filtration chamber in our eco columns was to demonstrate that it does clean water. And so from there, now this is pretty simple. There's just a few stages here in water treatment. And you will notice here that they have a storage tank. And we don't have a big tank of water, but if you drive through other cities or towns, you may notice the big storage tank, sometimes with the name of the city on it. And we don't use a storage tank. For us, we actually use ponds. And so we have a storage pond up at the Castaic Lake Water Agency, and it stores the treated water until it's needed at your home. So after the pond, however, we do add little bits of chlorine. It's not chlorine, sorry, it's chloramine, which is less harmful than chlorine. And so we put chloramines right here, right before it gets to your house, and that's to kill any bacteria that's in anybody's pipes. So we have standards that we have to meet with our water treatment that's established by the Safe Drinking Water Act. So do know this is the main act for cleaning our water to drink. So the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, takes the provisions of the Safe Drinking Water Act and makes sure that when you're treating water for drinking in our homes, that it meets all of the standards for 50, 60, 70 different items, from lead to arsenic to bacteria to nitrates. All of that stuff has limits, and so we actually test for certain of those things every hour in our water treatment plants. So again, know the main stages of water treatment. Again, water treatment is going to your homes. And in water treatment, some of these stages can be out of order. Like I said, in Santa Clarita, we actually do disinfection first before it goes through sedimentation and filtration. So it's not important the order that you learn it. You just have to know the various stages of wastewater treatment. I'm sorry, water treatment. This is a water treatment. Now we're going to go on to wastewater treatment, and sometimes people call this sewage treatment. And so this is after it's done with your house. So see the house, and so when you're done with water, or businesses are done with water, or schools, it goes to the wastewater treatment plant. And this stuff is done pretty much in order, and we have 3 types of treatment. We have primary, secondary, and tertiary water treatment. In Santa Clarita, we do all 3. We have tertiary water treatment. The first thing that happens is that we have bar screens, and the bar screens here, they remove large debris, branches, toilet paper, anything that people flush down the toilet that's not dissolved into the water. And this goes to the landfill. So a lot of the stuff is trash, and it goes to your landfill. And I have a picture over here. So the picture right here shows the screen and the trash that gets caught. So water flows through it, but trash gets caught and ends up in here. And so large pieces, leaves, twigs, toilet paper that's not dissolved. A lot of toilet paper dissolves, but a lot does not. That all gets caught in the screen and then again sent to the landfill. All right, going on to the next part. So we have a sedimentation tank. So this next part is important, and again, you have to know all the stages. So sedimentation tank. So our solids settle to the bottom. So that's anything that made it through the bar screens, settles to the bar, and then the oils rise to the top. And so the oils skim off, and other solids go to the bottom and become sludge. And we'll talk about sludge in a second. And so these 2 items here are called primary treatment. Now, a handful of places in the U.S. only do this, which is kind of gross, but they're done. The majority of places go on and do secondary treatment. And so next what happens is you have secondary aeration. So this is part of secondary water treatment. So let me write that here. So at this part, they put in bacteria, and they bubble in oxygen, and it digests organic waste. So bacteria plus oxygen. So the word aeration actually means adding oxygen, and so that occurs at that location. And then they do sedimentation again. And so right here it says secondary clarifier. A clarifier is another name for a sedimentation tank. And again, after we bubble and have the bacteria digest organic wastes, things like ammonia from urine and nitrates and that kind of thing. So, so the sedimentation tank also then has everything settle so that bigger parts go to the bottom and lighter material stays on top. So at the very bottom we have a bunch of dead bacteria or other organic matter that has settled to the bottom after it's been digested by microorganisms. And these digested materials become sludge. So sludge is over here. I forgot to show you what a sedimentation tank looks like, and the sedimentation tank is right here, and it shows you that fats, oils, and grease rise to the top, and you have other rich and other solid materials. And so these are skimmed off the top, and these are collected out of the bottom, and both of those items go to the landfill, whereas just the water goes on. So this is actually a primary sedimentation tank, and sometimes it's called a primary clarifier. So let's talk about sludge. So sludge is a process of, well, the sludge digester reduces the volume odors of sludge. And so sludge is like some solid stuff that's been decomposed, and it actually makes good fertilizer. So these digested sludge goes to farms as fertilizer, and so it's digested waste. Now, it goes to farms as fertilizer for non-food crops in the United States. So things like cotton or animal food, we can fertilize it basically with human waste that's been treated and disposed of. We're going to add another stage here. So this drawing does not have tertiary treatment. So we're going to, from here, we're going to add another stage. Santa Clarita does the next item here. So we have tertiary treatment, and we do 3 stages because our water, when it's treated, gets dumped into the river, which is a habitat for a lot of endangered species, and so we want it to be extra clean. It also is a water supply for the farms in Ventura and Oxnard that grow our strawberries and our oranges and avocados. So tertiary treatment is actually taking the water and putting it through sand and gravel and making it extra clean. And then from here, then it goes to the disinfection tank. So we add chlorine to the disinfection tank to kill any remaining pathogens before they go back into the river. But then chlorine's not good for fish, so then we actually add another chemical to bind to the chlorine so that it doesn't hurt the fish and other aquatic species in the river. And then for us, it goes into the Santa Clara River. Part of it goes in the river, actually most of it does, because again, down the stream, the farmers down there use it for their crops. So it's a good reuse of water. Part of our reclaimed water actually goes to water the West Ridge Golf Course. So reclaimed water, they'll say, reclaimed water, don't drink. And so reclaimed water is pretty much safe to drink, but don't do it because it hasn't been tested for the Safe Drinking Water Act. So we don't do the hourly tests to make sure that it's completely 100% safe. And that's why they say don't drink it. But it is pretty much clean enough to drink at that point. And so wastewater treatment plants meet the provisions of the Clean Water Act. And so the first thing that we did, the water treatment, meets the provisions of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Wastewater treatment meets the provisions of the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act is just more than wastewater treatment. It's also provisions for industry and other things that get dumped into our rivers and lakes and streams around the country.